Yeah, on record, Tshidi. On record, Tshidi.
The result, we are even struggling today to maintain the very infrastructure we inherited from our erstwhile oppressors. And I don't know where we are now, but from the opposition's point of view, from the UDM's point of view, simply is that we need another government.
Hello, welcome to Politricking. My name is Tshidi Madia. This is an Eyewitness News Politics podcast. This is episode 12 of season 3. So the guest this week is Bantu Holomisa, leader of UDM, the general, as most of us call him, because he actually is a retired general. Don't think that that's for fun. He actually has the title. But before then, I want to speak about Africa's heads of state's mission to Ukraine and to Russia over the weekend. I think I understood they meant well. People dismissed it. Like, what are you doing? You're inconsequential. You don't matter as Africa. I have an issue with the fact that we've accepted that narrative, like that Africa's views simply should not matter when it comes to geopolitics. I can't accept it because we are a continent with untapped potential. There's so much, and if we're going to ever move in a way where we must find respect in the big world of geopolitics, you've got to make moves, right? You've got to assert yourself. You've got to be seen. But I tell you, watching that aircraft in Poland that was detained, that had our journalists, the flight crew, the president's security, I kept thinking to myself, yeah, no, geopolitics has a papadi. I kept thinking of that song that was doing the rounds on TikTok. You want to bamba? Yeah, you want to run kitty kitty, you want to run kata, you want to play with the big boys. And I was like, yeah, no. Playing with the big boys is tough. It's painful because you feel the consequences so quickly. Right? You're hearing about AGOA being taken from us, but when you're watching the journalists who could not get out of an aircraft after a long haul flight and you're still stuck in there, you realize, oh yeah, no. Geopolitics are super bad. But even saying that, having seen that and listened to my colleagues' fears and cries and relief because they're back home, I still say Africa has to agitate in a particular way, even if you are dismissed. Mind you, you've got to assert yourself and stop being seen, at least attempt to stop being seen as big fish in a small pond. Africa is not a small pond. We are those with untapped potential. They need us as much as we need them, and we need to figure out how to play that game. Having said that, this whole thing was clumsy. That media briefing in Ukraine with Zelensky, our different presidents, where one is like, yeah, we're neutral, and the one says, no, African Union is very clear, we stand with Ukraine, then the one says that, and then Zelensky is questioning the roadmap. It was clumsy and embarrassing. But I do think it's necessary. Whether or not their attempts will heed anything, I also think it's something you don't dismiss as easily as many have. Because we are the nation that took so many years of just talking to get to where we are, right? We did not get to a democratic breakthrough overnight. I think about those CODESA talks that not all of you, many shame and think were a waste of time. Even that took many years to get to a point where there were free and fair elections, or democratic elections as it were, in 1994. So I have this whole thing about how nothing happens overnight. Many countries sit and talk. You agitate. You start somewhere. And I also find it interesting that people also differ, mind you, with the approach. Your former president, Thabo Mbeki, saying you don't go there with your lists. You go there to listen. As you know, the African heads of state went with lists. So I don't know. But you also have people like former Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo saying, you stick it out, you stay the course, and eventually something will give. So that's a story that we'll kind of wait and see. We'll keep an eye on, watch and see. Bantu Holomisa says we have no business doing that, but that it was more important to maybe agitate towards someone like Joe Biden, because this is a NATO issue, and he's correct. Definitely is a NATO issue. Here are his thoughts. Are there any redeeming qualities almost 30 years into it with everything that's gone wrong? Is there anything still salvageable in your eyes?
Yes, it is. We are still optimistic about the future of this country. Make no mistake, but we need to change the trajectory as soon as possible. And in doing so, is that we need to professionalize the players who are leading us, in particular in the administrative sphere. We need to introduce career civil servants where you train civil servants, not just grab anyone and make him or her make a DG who has never done even an induction course. Some are chief directors who have no clue about what they are talking about in their departments. To make things worse is for political heads, that is ministers, who have usurped the powers of the accounting officers by issuing political directives which are laced with corruption.
A lot of people talk about trying to professionalize public administrations, well, the administrative space. You've got people like Lindo Mazibugo with Future Elect who are trying to agitate and create a new cohort of people who want to serve the state, as opposed to people just focused on the party politics side of it and being political heads. It's taken us a very long time. We're not moving the needle as fast as we should. In part, I think it's because people are still benefiting from where the gaps are and where corruption can thrive. Is that it? Is it as simple as we're struggling to move the needle to change things because people are enjoying the benefits of corruption?
No, definitely we are caught up in the middle of this path we're traveling, precisely because we relied on people who were deployed by the ruling party. And the reason for deployment was also going to help the party itself by channeling the resources back to Luthuli House, as we have witnessed over the years and confirmed by commissions of inquiries. So if there is no political will to professionalize civil servants, civil service, then forget, we will continue with the current setup.
And then it'll be pointless to feel hopeful. I said earlier, you tweet a lot. You've had a lot of views now about the peacekeeping mission, the Africa peacekeeping mission to Ukraine and to Russia. They are trying to play some role in what's happening in that conflict with the invasion, of course, of Ukraine. What is your sense? Because my feeling from your tweets is that you think this was actually it's inconsequential, our efforts, we shouldn't have bothered.
I don't think we should have poked our nose into that in the affairs of Russia and Ukraine, because we know the history. The tension there is between Russia and NATO.
Yes.
Simple. Full stop.
Hence the treatment of South African journalists and the likes in Poland.
Yes. There's no other way you can describe it. As long as NATO is not willing to come to the table and sit around with Russia, then there will be no conflict will be resolved there. Also, hijacking that from the UN Security Council, because that matter should have been handled from day one by United Nations Security Council. Then when they try now to blackmail South Africa and so on and so on, we should have just kept our mouth shut.
You have a history of playing a role in mediation. So I struggle with that because I sit from a position where I think it's good that Africa, that's often sidelined, disregarded, no one cares what our views are trying to insert themselves. You are punching above your weight? Absolutely. You have no business there? Maybe. But it is important for African leaders to try and show up in spaces of top conversations in the geopolitical space. It's tough. We know that as a party, it's very difficult. But should we not try?
I fully agree with you in principle, but we do have a platform. The United Nations, we have a platform there. We should have made a lot of noise within that sphere and call for the problem of Russia, Ukraine to be solved by UN, which has instruments to do so. And also, if, for instance, we were to talk about a need to declare a certain buffer zone where we would deploy peacekeeping forces there, international ones, why would UN not do so? Because we do so here in Africa. Why in that area they were not prepared to venture into that airspace? It's precisely because NATO has got their own agenda, and Russia has his own way of viewing NATO forces as a main threat to them.
As somebody with the history that you have in terms of mediation, I mean, taxi conflicts, churches, as somebody with your history, what do you think ought to happen? Especially when you think about South Africa's role, because we are caught in the middle. When you look at things that are happening in the country, you always get the sense that there's a turf war that's happening and we are stuck. Threats of AGOA being taken from us by the Americans. This non-alignment versus no, you're actually aligned. There's a push and pull that we constantly finding ourselves in. What should happen?
Keep it simple. If I was President Cyril Ramaphosa today, I would have simply asked a meeting between the President of USA, President of Russia, and Ukraine. Just those three. You will find a solution.
You needed to bring Joe Biden into the conversation.
Yes.
You do keep saying NATO is an aggressor. And we definitely know with the threats of AGOA being taken from South Africa that America is definitely an aggressor. In fact, I keep arguing that I haven't felt Americans' pressure on this country as much as we are at the moment. So that is something that needs its own attention from where you're coming from.
It tells you why there is this pressure now. That it's clear that USA views South Africa as a strategic country, and they wouldn't afford that it would go back to be under, call it the old Russia, because there is a view out there that the Russians are trying to, or Putin is trying to revive the old boundaries back again to build the strong Russia of old. So also the USA cannot afford, therefore, to allow countries like South Africa. So we're caught in between, but I would have done it the other way around and say, Mr. Putin, President of USA, let's have coffee.
The target should be Biden. I take that. I want to bring you back home a little bit. Before we even get to Palapala and the president, because we definitely have to, I want to start in your home province. Your sense of the Eastern Cape. We have a premier now who has won the first round, at least, of a battle with the SIU. But to see a premier going to the courts to stop investigations, he did it first with the Winnie Madikizela Mandela Memorial. He's doing it now with an SIU looking into Fort Hare. Mind you, people are dying at Fort Hare. People are being killed. What is your sense of your home province and particularly Oscar Mabuyane at the moment?
Well, it is unfortunate that University of Fort Hare is in this problem, because that's a reputable university which has produced many leaders of the continent. But unfortunately, it looks like this corruption has got tentacles from the state departments, from the ministers, from the presidents, up to institution of education. So we must look at it in that context, that this is as a result of corruption which is eating into the body politic of this country like a cancerous tumor. Having said that, I don't want to argue much about the so-called success of Mabuyane in today's judgment, because Part B is still coming, which is more serious, where he has to show why he is calling for the government or the law enforcement agencies not to investigate him. So we are still going to hear that part. I don't think this is victory for him. But in terms of Mabuyane being involved into this, you see, in this country there seems to be the powers that be are suffering from what I would call a selective amnesia, because with some they will say step aside, with some you are suspended, others they will be left alone, especially if they are closer to the powers that be.
And Ace Magashule being one of those people who's just been booted out.
Yeah.
And Julius Malema once upon a time. But before the two of them, there was you. You were also booted out of that party. Does it feel when you reflect back, when you reconcile what happened to you in the 90s and you look at where they are now, do you still feel like it has always been an issue of selective amnesia, that some are higher kings and are dealt with more lightly than others? Or was it a different time with you when you were...
No, it was a different time with me. And you remember that, I think that time after ANC came into South Africa, coming into power, let's put it that way. I think I was the first victim to have been, or first person to have been expelled. But there are no regrets, because I didn't steal a cent. I was defending a certain principle, which everybody agreed. But I love these days. I just watch TV and open up a bottle of wine and enjoy myself. And I said, I listen to this one. They are talking about corruption, accusing each other. The very word I suffered for by me mentioning it. Making 90s. A reference, yes, of corruption which took place in Transkei government then. Now is also a fashion among the comrades. The liberators of yesterday. Hey, now let me open a glass of wine.
And laugh away. Do they call you, like, has Ace Magashule after being expelled go, "Hi Bantu, let me tell you about my experience"? Has Julius called you when people are kicked out and dealt with the way that they are? Do they ever maybe call you and be like, "I need an ear from somebody who understands what it's like"?
Insofar as the EFF is concerned, you will recall that I was in their launch in Marikana, and I was requested to pass a message. It was the only political party. And I did advise them publicly, and I think those fellows have done very well for themselves. And as far as Ace is concerned, yeah, we will be having coffee with Ace in one of the days, so don't worry. So we chat.
We'll find each other and have a conversation.
We're in political limbo, all of us.
But did like Julius actually put a call and say, "I'm out"? Never mind the idea of please come and endorse and advise and guide us as a political party. But when he was booted out of the ANC, didn't he not call and say, "Oh, General, even me, I'm out the door"?
No, he didn't do that. But you will recall that with Julius, we met firstly when there was that Marikana massacre. He was still, he was still in the youth league of the ANC at that stage.
It was just run about the president, yes. At the end, really, of the time there. I'll be interested to hear what you and Ace discuss over coffee, but it's neither here nor there. You have an unwavering position, I think, on the suspended public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Help me understand where you stand on that matter. And obviously, it's evolved quite a bit. You've got now the issues around the bribery allegations. You now have issues around people like Pemi Machotina and even the chair, Richard Njanti, who's an issue and a question mark over them. Your position on that particular person and that office at the moment?
Well, I have a problem, although I'm a politician, but I've also got an experience in the administration. I was a head of a Department of Defense, as commander of the Transkei Defense Force then. You see, when you say you are going to make laws, you make a law for an individual. I have a problem with that, with retrospective effect. That law also being seen that it is going to have a retrospective effect. And to make things worse is when the same person you are dealing with, she has not been found wanting by the Auditor General. So she has been running that department correctly. And also when you look at the...
But the courts have had a lot of damning outcomes
about
the work that she's done.
That's fine. We have seen worse damning outcomes by the higher court on lower judges, but they are never impeached. So what we need to do here is that we need to have rules and regulations, because we didn't have rules and regulations to deal with the public protect or Chapter 9 institutions. We had to come up with new cases in order to effect a complaint by DA. I don't think that's good. That's bad law. But having said that, I think if we are talking about courts, the courts of the Western Cape ruled in favor of the public protector and said
suspension,
and said this is illegal suspension, an illegal suspension. Guess what? 6 months have passed since President and the DA have appealed that judgment. Why the Concord is not pronouncing on their judgment? 6 months. What's going on?
What do you think is going on?
I don't know. I'm asking.
You must have a feeling.
No.
You don't just ask a question. You ask a question with an answer in mind.
This is unusual. Now you say you put this person on a guillotine this side. On the other side, you are closing anyone who would want to save his or her life. That's not right. We're not. This is not a banana republic.
And her window of office is coming to an end. We're looking at months now. Do you think that those issues, because now you're speaking about laws and you're speaking about dealing with something as an office and its legal standing of an office and how it operates and how we relate to it versus an individual who's currently occupying it. When that window closes, do you think that South Africa will have the stamina to see through and establish particular rules and regulations even beyond her, or does her term of office end and then they'll do maybe even a golden handshake and then we move on? Because that's what I'm actually concerned about, is that we'll leave it with question marks because the term of office has ended.
I don't think we will not finish that inquiry. But what is needed is to comply with the Concord judgment, which said the public protector must have her legal representation. So this thing of stopping paying, we're not paying, we're paying, now you are going to be represented by a state law advisor, and so on and so on. It just shows how desperate these people are. It tells you that, after all, it seems as if there was something behind this so-called impeachment, because remember, when she was suspended, the public protector was investigating about 4 different cases against the president. Why don't you guys want to highlight that?
I think we do talk about it. We always have a question mark around how much of attention do we give to that. I'll get to that. We're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to get there. But I want to also say to you, the other side will also argue that, by and large, her representatives also frustrated the inquiry. What would you then say? Well,
in court, all the lawyers, they've got their own tactics and styles of doing things. But so far, I think the acting public protector shot herself on her foot by withdrawing, by saying there's no money to pay. So he got into the trap. So the delay, therefore, cannot be blamed on Mkhwebana.
Okay, so
not at all.
So we'll blame the acting public protector.
Yes.
It's cutting your nose to spite your face in your ways. You spoke about some of the inquiries that were before the public protector that have not been dealt with. Palapala comes to mind quite often. We as members of the media are always berated for it. But my position on it has never changed. I've always said there are many question marks. I feel like the rule of law was undermined, and I feel like your role as a president has also been undermined, because you are accountable to the public. If you don't take us into your confidence, you fail at your job. If you, who promotes anti-corruption and respect of the rule of law, are not seen to be doing it yourself, haven't taken the steps, there is a problem. I've never changed from that position. General, that's my unwavering position on all of this. So I then say to you, we've marked a year. We don't necessarily have the answers. What we've seen is a preliminary report where the argument of jurisdiction is put on the table, and the acting public protector pretty much clears the president, and fault is found, funny enough, with his head of security, Wally Rode, and another officer.
Which public protector cleared the president?
I said acting, didn't I?
Okay.
Via preliminary report. It's not been made public. It was a leak.
No, you see, the whole fiasco, to me, tells me that the person who is under trial is the ANC itself. Remember that there was a panel report compiled by former Chief Justice of this country, a highly respected judge for that matter. And for the ANC to say, don't even open that report, it tells you where we are, who are we dealing with. So ANC, including its president, to me, they have failed South Africa on the Palapala issue.
I think on that and many other avenues. Do you think South Africans will wake up soon? Not even one day. I think one day eventually we'll get it. But as a country, we'll soon wake up and say, actually, this party is not serving us.
They have already said so on many occasions. They are saying so as we speak.
And I imagine they'll say so in 2024 from where you stand.
I hope so. But unless we watch the IEC, who appoints the people to compile the data? Who appoint these service providers for the IEC? Are the parties aware? What if some of these companies, IT companies, are part of the investment arm of the ruling party's companies?
So you're worried about the IEC and its capacity to do its job?
Yeah, no, they can do the job, but who is doing that job? Is that a proper job?
But I can oversight would lie with the IEC. So what you're suggesting is
we
should be watching the IEC.
We have already raised that issue by saying we want the names of the companies which are employed by the IEC right now. I don't know whether they have finished us with that information, but in our last meeting with them, together with other leaders of the political parties, we demanded to know who are these IT companies, which company is printing, where are these things printed, and why are they not numbered in serial numbers and so on.
When was this request made?
I think last month.
Okay, so that's an important part. Yeah. So political parties are quite worried and are keeping a hawk's eye, really, on the Independent Electoral Commission, the IEC, to make sure that we do get to free and fair elections ultimately in 2024. Before I move, because I want to speak about UDM and I want to speak about 2024, but before then, I want to speak about the NDPP, and I link that the National National Directorate of Public Prosecutions, the NDPP, Shamila Botsoy, NDPP.
What is that one? NPA?
Yes, the National Prosecuting Authority, the National Directorate of Public Prosecutions. That's what I want to talk about. Oh, tongue-tied. I want to speak about Advocate Shamila Botsoy, but not just to start on her, but I want to fudge that along with state capture, because what you've had were recommendations. But on the back of those recommendations, what you also then got were politicians who were ministers, who remain ministers, even though they're found wanting in this report where we spent millions uncovering what's happened. What you got post-state capture is continued state capture. And then you also have an NPA that a lot of people feel isn't moving nearly as fast as it needs to. What are your thoughts? I know you've called for, I think, an inquiry into her fitness to hold office. Is it moving anywhere? Are you finding anyone hearing you out in that direction?
And not from the government's side.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, otherwise she is doing a good job to protect the top management of the government, because all of them, most of them, they should have not been there in the first instance, starting from the president, ministers, mandashes, and so on. All those people who were fingered for having benefited from Bosasa legacies. So I don't have any confidence in the NPA. In fact, if you look at the last time we had a high profile conviction, it was Jackie Silebe in the last 30 years. how many billions and trillions of rands have disappeared.
Down the toilet. But it's also quite
Yes.
disheartening because Jackie Silipi's era was before the 2010 World
Yes.
Cup. So we've been fumbling and bumbling
Yes.
and struggling since then. That's the picture you're painting. I want to move on very quickly now to your party, the UDM. I'm pretty sure it was written off from the very beginning in the 90s. It is still here. But teka from where I'm standing. You know what
Yes.
that means, right? When I say something, teka.
No, he put it this way so that people can understand is that you started well and then you have
Yes,
been
I'm speaking about a
declining.
decline.
Yes.
So those who speak my language will know that it means that it's on its knees. It's tough times. It feels like that from outside. Take me inside your party. How is the UDM in 2023?
The United Democratic Movement is still occupying the crease. We are turning 26 this year. We have been occupying the crease. We have hit them for 4s and 6s.
4s and 6s.
Yes.
Not understand cricket.
No.
That's big playing.
That's big playing. If you look at what we have done, it is the UDM which campaigned for the floor crossing legislation to be stopped. It's no longer in our statute books as we speak. It was the UDM which called for the chairperson of the IEC to pack and go. It was the UDM which called for a secret ballot to be recognized. We won that in the Concord. It is
with many other parties.
No,
you were not alone.
No, UDM. You must read your.
I think I was actually there.
Yes, you
That's
might.
when I was very much on the streets.
You might have been there, but applicant number 1 was the UDM.
Okay, let's give you half a point for that.
Others who might have joined it as
yes,
friends
they joined
of
as
the
you
court.
went along.
Friends of the court. So, in other words, you don't have to be worried much about how many numbers. It's the quality of the work you produce, which counts from when we are in a democratic setup. We accept that people still want their ANC. ANC has got a rich history. And ANC is not only composed of hardline socialists. You have capitalists, you have religious groupings.
Broad church.
Yes, a broad church. So not a single party outside the ANC can single-handedly remove the ANC from power. So that is why we have been saying the best way to do is to create a new alliance, because the tripartite alliance as we know it has failed the country. So you need a new alliance which can take us back to the original agenda, that of improving the quality of life of all. So, but the United Democratic Movement, don't worry about it, my sister. We are going to see us again in 2024. People have long written obituary for the UDM. This year we are celebrating 26th year. We will be launching our manifesto in September and also celebrate the 26th anniversary.
I remember being at your conference in Mangaung. I think that must have been 2015, 14,
Yes,
15.
Yes.
There were conversations around succession a little bit, but didn't really take off. I mean, I think Kanye Litchfield joined, she was deputy, she didn't last. And the point that I'm trying to drive is you remain the face, the name, the party. So all these successes that you count, we almost put to Bantu Holomisa and not the UDM. And I can't see life.
That's your own problem.
We are outsiders.
I'm the
Perception
UDM.
matters. Perception matters.
I'm the UDM.
But perception matters.
I agree, my sister.
Right? And if people can't see a UDM beyond Bantu Holomisa, are you not in trouble?
No, I'm not in trouble. Now, I see UDM beyond Holomisa because I've got competent young people. One of them is a highly respected young man called him Kwankwa. 2 weeks ago, we have now appointed the youngest Secretary General in the country. So we are very passionate about grooming people. Yes, of course, other people have groomed, were snatched away by the ruling party during floor crossing. But it's okay. We are now ascending nicely. You will see
You're
them.
ascending.
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 Yeah.
Upward movement.
Yeah.
Sabona corner.
Sabona corner, son.
That's exactly what we're going to do. What is the strategy and tactics that you're going to employ as you move towards 2024? What are you specifically going to try and do? A lot of people are looking at younger voters, people who've never voted before. They're looking at different avenues to try and find support. What is UDM trying to do?
Obviously, we are part of South Africa. So the majority of voters, if we manage to encourage them to go and vote, is the young people. But we are not looking only on young people. It has to be a generation mix. We look at the voters, those who are sure they will come and vote. We also think that by introducing young generation at NEC level, because the deputy secretary, the secretary general has got 2 deputies which are women, and also you have an organizer with 2 deputies. All of them are young. So that's why I'm saying we are no longer talking about descending. It's an ascendancy profile which we are implementing.
You spoke about an alliance being a necessity to find a new alliance. What does that look like to you?
Well, the alliance which would be ideal for South Africa is an alliance which would promote the ethics of good governance. That's point number 1. An alliance which would be fair, come up with the rules and regulations which are fair to all South Africans, not only looking at the interest of the card-carrying members of that particular alliance, but you treat South Africans as equal and deliver the services, and that you make sure that the rule of law is observed by everybody. Because if there is no rule of law in this country, forget about growing the economy. Nobody is going to invest his or her money, even if her money is in South Africa, let alone the ones who will come from outside. And also we need to make sure that we understand the regulations around the cooperation with your neighboring countries. I wish one day that SADC countries should, at least leaders, meet once in a quarter to look and compare notes and see whether Southern Africa is benefiting from international economies, whether we like it or not. The population, the people are already ahead of these governments. They are here in South Africa. They are moving all over. They are trading in and out. So, but when it comes to issues related to crime, we need to tighten with our neighboring countries and speak one language. Otherwise, people are going to be frustrated. And if people see from outside that SADC is stable, they are going to come and invest in Namibia, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, but we must live harmoniously.
That does need better management,
yes,
particularly the issue around the movement of Africans in this region. You won't be joining the Moonshot Pact as UDM?
What is that?
You've answered my question right there.
Yeah. No, I said to them, they can go to that trip. We will wait for them. Let us not put all our eggs in one basket, just in case that parachute of theirs or their plane crashes. So
off to the moon with the DA. They will watch it from the sidelines. Okay, General. Are you ready for the possibility of a Paul Mashatile presidency?
The term of President Cyril Ramaphosa ends, I think, next year, no? As the president of the country.
Yes.
Depending on the outcome of the results.
Yes.
So unless you have an exclusive intelligence that he might be a president between now and April next year.
I have a crystal ball.
Is he going to be recalled after
this?
I
have a crystal ball. That's all you need to know. And the question is, what would it be like for you? What are your thoughts about the possibility of a presidency of Paul Mashatile?
No, that's a matter of the ruling party, really. I would be.
But if he becomes head of state, I mean, he's the second in command at the moment.
That's fine, not because the mandate is between now and next election has been given to the ANC. So I wouldn't be worried about whoever they put him there.
Would it be inconsequential? Would it not be easier to try and work with somebody like him for opposition parties to maybe try come together? Because the issue that we have in South Africa, at least us as citizens, is we are seeing a political space where you're struggling to find one another, to work with each other, no matter the differences. There was a period where that was possible.
Which I was calling for, arranging meeting between opposition and the president. But unfortunately, he didn't have time to constantly meet us. So I don't think I can't waste my time on those meetings anymore. Let's look at the results of the elections next year. If Mashatile will be the president after next year's elections, of which I doubt because the term of Cyril is 5 years. When was he elected again?
He was re-elected the last year.
So you guys, you're still going to be under Cyril
Ramaphosa. But please understand that I have a crystal ball.
If ANC wins. Your crystal ball is fine. It's fine. But you owe an explanation to the public. Unpack that. Don't just
I will do so when.
Don't just throw loose bones.
I'm just throwing bones, Lana. No, I'm not throwing bones for fun. My bones are telling me something, but it'll come to fore as everything does.
No, we'll have a bottle of champagne.
Champagne?
Yeah.
You know what? I'll say yes to champagne. I never say no, I can't afford it. Thank you so much. That's Bantu Holomisa, the general leader of UDM, speaking about the UDM, its prospects, but also just his thoughts about where we are as a country. I think every day we try and figure out who or what we are to make sense, to be optimistic, not to be. He believes we should be. I've always, I never know. I'm waiting to make up my mind about what we ought to be. Thank you so much for your time, General.
Thank you very much, sis.
That's it from us. A special thank you to Lerato Herfela, Duduzile Masuku, and Tidiso Twala. For Eyewitness News, my name is Tshidi Madia.